Today we are going to master the sin rule, a powerful tool for finding missing sides and angles in triangles that are not right-angled. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify when the sine rule is applicable, choose the most efficient form of the equation, and solve exam-style problems with confidence. Our learning objectives are: 1. Identify when to use the sine rule. 2. Solve for missing sides. And 3. Solve for missing angles. Before we look at the formula, we need to understand how we label a triangle. We use capital letters for the angles and lowercase letters for the sides. The key is that side A must be directly across from angle A, side B across from angle B, and side C across from angle C. This opposite pairing is the heartbeat of the sine rule. The sine rule establishes a constant relationship between the sides of a triangle and the sines of their opposite angles. In any triangle, the ratio of a side to the sine of its opposite angle is the same for all three pairs. We usually write it like this when we want to find a missing side. By putting the sides on top, the algebra becomes much easier. Alternatively, we can flip the whole thing upside down. We use this version when we are looking for a missing angle. So, how do we know when to use it? You need what I call a known pair, that is, one side and its opposite angle both given to you, plus one other piece of information. Let's look at our first goal, solving for a missing side. This usually happens when you are given two angles and one side. In this triangle, we have a known pair. Side B is 12, and its opposite angle B is 82 degrees. We want to find side X, which is opposite the 40-degree angle. Because we are looking for a side, we put the sides on top. This keeps our unknown variable, x, in the numerator. Now, we substitute our values. X over sine 40 equals 12 over sine 82. To isolate x, we simply multiplied both sides by sine 40. Using a calculator, we find that x is approximately 7.79 centimeters. Notice how choosing the version with the side on top made the algebra just one single step. Now let's look at our second goal, solving for a missing angle. This is used when you know two sides and one opposite angle. Here, our known pair is the 10-centimeter side and the 75-degree angle. We are looking for angle theta, which is opposite the 8-centimeter side. Since we are finding an angle, we use the version with the sines on top. This makes the algebra much cleaner. Plugging in our numbers, we get sine theta over 8 equals sine 75 over 10. First, we multiply by 8 to get sine theta by itself. Now, to find the actual angle, we must take the inverse sine of the result. Typing this into the calculator gives us approximately 50.6 degrees. Always remember to use the shift or second button on your calculator to access that inverse sine function when looking for angles. Now, let's look at a common IGCSE exam trick where the known pair isn't immediately obvious. In this problem, we want to find side X. We have its opposite angle, 35 degrees. However, the only side we know is side C, which is 7 meters, but we don't have angle C. Before we can use the sine rule, we must use the fact that angles in a triangle sum to 180 degrees. 180 minus 110 minus 35 gives us 35 degrees for angle C. Now we have our known pair, side 7 and angle 35 degrees. Setting up the sine rule, x over sine 35 equals 7 over sine 35. In this specific case, because the angles are equal, the sides are equal. But the important lesson is, if you don't have a known pair, check if you can calculate the third angle first. To wrap up, let's recap what we've learned today to ensure you're ready for your exams. We've covered how to identify when to use the sine rule, how to solve for missing sides, and how to solve for missing angles. First, we learned that the sine rule is for non-right-angled triangles, where you have a known pair of a side and its opposite angle. Let's look at the criteria. To find a side, you need two angles and one side. To find an angle, you need two sides and one opposite angle. We use the side on top form, A over sine A equals B over sine B, to find lengths. We use the sine on top form, sine A over A equals sine B over B, to find angles. And finally, always check if you need to subtract from 180 degrees to find a missing angle before you start. Take a moment for some self-reflection. Can you explain why we flip the formula depending on what we are looking for? Take a moment to think about that. It's all about making the algebra easier. You are now ready to tackle sign rule problems in your IGCSE studies. Practice these steps and you'll find these questions are some of the most straightforward marks you can get.